the 30th of August 2023, and today we are concluding Women's Month, and we remember the women of South Africa and the world who continue to struggle against gender-based violence, that women who also are on the front line of making sure that the children in our country and everywhere else are protected from poverty. On the issues from the environment, on the BRICS 15th Summit and the Johannesburg II Declaration, South Africa hosted a successful BRICS 15th Summit that adopted the historic Johannesburg II Declaration. Cabinet expressed its appreciation to Team South Africa, ably led by our State President, His Excellency Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, who ensured that the summit was a great success at the level of both content and the logistics. The President will address the nation on the successful BRICS Summit and other important matters, and will announce the date and time for the President's address. A state visit by the Chinese President. South Africa hosted a state visit of His Excellency President Xi Jinping of the People's Republic of China on Tuesday, 22nd of August 2023, ahead of the BRICS Summit. The state visit also marked the celebration of 25 years of diplomatic relations between the Republic of South Africa and the People's Republic of China. The People's Republic of China is currently South Africa's largest trading partner. The People's Republic of China had previously donated emergency power equipment worth 164 million rands and have since made available a grant of 500 million rands for development assistance. Cabinet welcomed the signing of various agreements and memoranda of understanding between South African government and the People's Republic of China in the areas of trade, energy, and higher education, amongst others. Amongst the signed agreements, it is the China-Africa Development Fund between the IDC and the Bank of China, which will stimulate increased investments in South Africa. Cabinet also welcomed the reopening of the Chinese market for the export of South African beef, in addition to the export of South African avocados to China. This export open opportunities that will be unlocked for our local producers, including small-scale farmers. South Africa is negotiating with BYD, the Chinese automaker and the world's largest electric vehicle manufacturer, for possible opening of a manufacturing plant in South Africa. This is in addition to the current measures to fast-track the opening of the bike manufacturing or production plant in South Africa, and bike is another Chinese auto manufacturer. Highlights of the economy: the quarterly labor survey. Cabinet welcomed the quarterly labor force survey results for Q2 as released by Statistics South Africa, which indicated a slight decrease in the unemployment rate from 32.9% in the first quarter to 32.6% in the second quarter. Cabinet also was also pleased with the 154,000 new jobs that were created in the second quarter, taking the number of employed persons to 16.3 million. This is the seventh quarter of consecutive gains in employment, and it's inching South Africa closer to the pre-COVID-19 employment figures of 16.4 million people who were employed. Cabinet has also noted the green shoots with a reduction of youth unemployment by 131,000 and an increase of 105,000 jobs in the number of employed youth to 5.7 million. On the consumer price inflation, Cabinet welcomed reports by Stats South Africa that the annual consumer price inflation slowed to 4.7% in July 2023 from 5.4% in June 2023. The annual inflation rate for goods was 5.5% for July 2023 from 6.3% in June 2023, whereas the inflation rate for services was 4%, down from 4.5% in June 2023. On Agro Energy Fund to support agriculture and agribusiness, Cabinet welcomed the launch of the Agro Fund to support agriculture and agribusiness sector to install alternative energy resources and continue with food, fiber and beverages production. This is a fund that was launched by the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development collaboratively with the Land Bank to the tune of 1.2 billion rands. The sector is one of the intensive energy users and critical for the stability of South Africa's food security, export earnings and employment, thus making this government intervention vital to ensure sustainability. The fund is inclusive and will support farming businesses in all scales in a blended finance approach with the Land Bank managing the fund. The fund will also include all agriculture and agribusiness activities that are energy intensive. Implementation of the State Capture Commission recommendations. Progress in implementing the recommendations of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture, corruption and fraud in the public sector, including in organs of state, includes 5.4 billion rands being traced and for return to the state after the National Prosecuting Authority was granted freezing orders to the value of 13 billion rands. Cabinet has approved and tabled in Parliament 8 of the 14 new legislative amendments identified in our implementation plan as part of implementing the recommendations from the Commission of Inquiry. Work is also continuing to ensure that those responsible for state capture are held to account. On the fight against crime, corruption and illegal immigration, the latest quarterly crime statistics show that we must do more as a society to tackle the scourge of crime. Cabinet calls on everyone to join the fight and to work collectively to make our homes, places of work and the public spaces safer for all. Cabinet noted the recent guilty plea and the sentencing of 6 men accused of killing anti-corruption whistleblower Ms. Babita Dokeran in August 2021. It called on law enforcement agencies to further investigate and ensure that the masterminds behind the murder are brought to book. Cabinet applauded the integrated approach in combating crime that recently led to the Department of Home Affairs intercepting 67 Pakistani nationals who tried to enter the country illegally at OR Tambo International Airport on Sunday, 13 August 2023. Cabinet further welcomed the extension of the integrated crime-fighting Operation Shanyela to other provinces, including the Northern Cape, Eastern Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. On Transforming Mentalities Summit 2023, the recently concluded Transforming Mentalities Summit has left an indelible mark on 1,500 attendees with its powerful engagement and insightful discussions poised to pave the way for transformation needs for men and boy behavior. Held at the Beachwood Hotel, the summit brought together university vice-chancellors, deans, principals, and council chairpersons of TVET colleges, student support structures and leadership, CEOs of SETAs, the Sector Education Training Authorities, entities of the Departments of Higher Education and Science and Innovation, policymakers, survivors, peer educators, and change makers, all unified by a shared commitment to addressing gender-based violence within the post-school education and training sector. The summit was hosted by the Higher Health and the Human Science Research Council, HSRC, on behalf of the Department of Higher Education and Training and the Department of Science and Innovation. The aim was to engage the sector leadership on transforming mentalities and address the root cause of GBV. Evidence and data suggest that men behavior has been one of the root causes of GBV, and the summit called for action of men and boys towards being part of the solution. The summit asked for the development of more peer educators and champions across all our campuses to work as change agents towards transforming mentalities, more men dialogues across all institutions, incorporating gender studies, including GBV, gender equality, gender diversity, and transforming mentalities as co-curriculum alongside the main curriculum of the post-education and training sector. On electricity, Cabinet received an update on electricity situation in the country and noted reports of the continued improvement in electricity availability. Although the last few days had recorded an increase in the load shedding stages to stage 4, the situation has since improved with the return of units to generation, and ESCOM continues to taper down the load shedding stages. Cabinet was briefed that there are communities that have no electricity due to power outages and not load shedding. These power outages are caused by the system overload due to illegal connections, theft or vandalism of substations and transformers, and vandalism of distribution lines, amongst others. The affected communities include those in parts of Soweto, parts of Tembisa, Kwatema, Komani in the Eastern Cape, Taung, and Ditsobotla in the Northwest. The Minister of Electricity and the Department of Culture have commenced with a program to engage with the affected communities to agree on measures that will allow the replacement of damaged infrastructures, but linked with the prohibition of illegal connections, community partnerships in the protection of electricity infrastructure, and the payment of electricity services. South Africa's agreement with the Chinese companies is one of the recently signed agreements by the Minister of Electricity, will play a significant role in introducing electricity infrastructure with self-preservation capability. On the Western Cape Provincial Powers Bill, Cabinet was briefed about the unconstitutional draft Western Cape Provincial Powers Bill. The draft bill violates the provisions of Schedules 4 and 5 of the Constitution that set out powers and functions, including concurrent powers of both the provincial and national executives. Cabinet has noted that this draft bill is an attempt to revert back to the democratic parties, the forerunner to the Democratic Alliance preferred federal approach that seeks to undermine a united, non-racial, and inclusive South Africa. It is noteworthy that the Western Cape draft bill ignores the exclusion from access to services such as housing and sanitation of the large black communities of Khayelitsha, Gugulethu, Nyanga, Langa, the Cape Flats, Delft, the Central Line, amongst others. Cabinet has mandated the Ministers of Justice and Culture to enter into discussions with the Western Cape Provincial Government in line with the relevant dispute resolution mechanisms as provided for in Section 146 of the Constitution and the applicable intergovernmental framework. On Cabinet decisions, 1. The extension of the Tax Relief Fund disbursement. Cabinet approved the extension period for the disbursement of the Tax Relief Fund for another 12 months. The extension will provide the Department of Transport sufficient time to assist the many taxi operators who are yet to receive the relief funds. To date, 88,580 taxi operators have been assisted. The fund was established to assist minibus taxis, the cabs, and the e-hailing drivers who were financially disadvantaged during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns, in line with the stipulated criteria. On the Green Paper on the development of tourism in South Africa, Cabinet approved the publication of the Green Paper on the development of tourism in South Africa for public comments. The policy seeks to develop and promote tourism in South Africa and address barriers to tourism growth. The policy will promote rural and peri-urban tourism by encouraging the profiling and visibility of rural products. Policy proposals also focus on tourism governance and cooperation, safety and security management, transformation, and embracing technology, amongst others. Members of the public have 90 days to make comments on the policy. The Green Paper is available on the tourism.gov.za website. The National Policy on Theatre and Dance. Cabinet approved the National Policy on Theatre and Dance. The policy seeks to address the historically institutionalized inequalities and disparities which follow racial and economic access lines in theatre and dance sector. The policy aims to set a vision and practical policies, strategies, implementation mechanisms, and timeframes that will result in a sustainable and vibrant theatre and dance sector in all our 9 provinces, with South African dance and theatre makers representing the country with pride continentally and globally. On the essential food price monitoring reports, the Competition Commission has been monitoring essential food prices pursuant to price gauging concerns that rose since the declaration of the state of disaster in March 2020. The continuation of essential food price monitoring is motivated by the need to ensure affordable and accessible essential food products for consumers. The Commission has noted the rocket and feather effect where prices rise quickly, often in excess of cost increases, and slow to fall once cost pressures decline. It has also flagged the concentrated nature of the food and retail markets as a concerning contributing factor. The Cabinet has noted the Commission's recommended measures, including market inquiries to address structural features in the market that lead to high food prices and low levels of competition. Cabinet has approved that the economic cluster must put in place an action plan on food prices, food security, and access to food. On appointments, it must be noted all appointments are subject to the verification of qualifications and relevant security clearances. Cabinet approved the appointment of Ms. Nosiphiwe Nzamo as the Chief Executive Officer of the State Diamond Trader, Mr. Loyiso Tiabashe as the CEO of the South African Nuclear Energy Corporation, which is a reappointment. Cabinet approved the appointment of the non-executive members to serve on the Ports Regulator Board for a period of 3 years. The appointed members are Mr. Obrin Ngobo as the chairperson, Ms. Laureate Lynn Sikoko, Advocate Derek Jeffrey Block, Ms. Tembela Beryl Tobashe, Mr. Abdul Kadi Chokla, Dr. Percy Derek Manzini, Ms. Princess Mangoma, Ms. Sizakele Makanya, Ms. Tibaleng Ralond Sitlaku, Ms. Masha Kolisile Mkari, and Ms. Leenda Masha Mchali, who is being reappointed. Cabinet approved the appointment of the non-executive directors of the South African Maritime Safety Authority, SAMSA, board for a period of 3 years. The members appointed are Mr. Mahesh Faki as the chairperson, Mr. Taumure as the deputy chairperson, Advocate Oriel Nosipos Sobekwa, Dr. Natalia Skeppers, Ms. Nogolide Feziwe Nojozi, and Mr. Sihle Ngose. Upcoming events: Heritage Month. Heritage Month will be celebrated under the theme Celebrating Our Cultural Diversity in a Democratic South Africa. Communities are urged to use Heritage Month, which is the month of September, to unite our nation as we celebrate our nation's rich history, heritage, and diversity. Public Service Month. The Public Service Month will be celebrated between the 1st and 30th of September, and the month serves as a reminder of what is to serve and offers us an opportunity to reflect on how public servants can impact and change the lives of the communities. The Tusong Service Week. This year's annual Tusong Service Week will take place from the 18th to the 22nd of September 2023. South Africans are invited to explore the array of services offered at their local Tusong service centers, which is a one-stop service point that brings government information and services closer to the people. National Police Commemoration Day. In honor of our heroes and heroines who passed away in the line of duty, the South African Police Service National Commemoration Day will be held at the Union Buildings on Sunday, 3rd September 2023. The national flag will be flown at half-mast on the day of the event. On messages of congratulations, Cabinet extends its congratulations and well wishes to the Ms. Natasha Joubert, the newly crowned Miss South Africa 2023, as she embarks on her reign as Miss South Africa. Mr. Brad Binder, who finished second at the Austrian MotoGP, the Springboks for beating the All Blacks, and we wish them well in the forthcoming Rugby World Cup. We're looking forward to joining the lifting of the cup, the Webb Ellis Cup in France, when our Springboks are victorious. We extend our congratulations to India for becoming the first country to successfully land a spacecraft near the South Pole of the Moon. The people of Zimbabwe for exercising their democratic right to vote, and we reiterate our commitment to work with Zimbabwe in strengthening the region and the continent. On condolences, Cabinet expresses its condolences to the family and friends of Mr. Derek Watts, 74, the veteran television host and journalist who will be remembered as the face of Carte Blanche TV series, and for his dedication to investigative journalism. Ms. Sylvia Ngediwe Dunyelo, the jazz singer and actor who worked with the late Victor Ntoni and the Nkana brothers, Winston Mankuku, Nikata, and Meton Baro. To the family and friends of the victims of the fire that broke out last night or early this morning in downtown Johannesburg. Thank you.
Minister, thank you very much. We're now going to be moving to the questions. We'll sit in the room. You introduce yourself and the media house that you represent. Then we move to the online questions. Okay. Can assist us with mic? Give her the mic, please. Yes.
Minister, I'm Saya Panabal from SABC. I know in your last remarks you mentioned the condolences to the people, families who've lost loved ones who have died during the Joburg fire. I think it's very relevant at the moment. Is there any reaction from government in terms of how to deal with situations like these, especially if you look at informal settlement? At the moment, the body count is at 63, more than 40 people injured. Just a more elaborate reaction to that, please.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other in the room? Okay, Dagalan, can you take us through the online questions?
Thank you, DG. The first question from online is from Suman Naito, who is a freelance journalist for the Legal News SA. And the first question is, in the interest of transparency and openness, will government release any details and information regarding the total cost, the currently held BRICS Summit cost, South Africa? And the second question is, South Africa recently marked the 11th anniversary of the Marikana massacre, where we once again had calls for the 16th of August to be declared a public holiday. Is this something Cabinet or government has considered? And the third question is the President being briefed and monitoring developments of the situation happening in Johannesburg CBD fire? And we have Marvin Adams. The question is, in light of the alarming increase in videos capturing racist incidents, can the Minister please provide insight into whether the Cabinet has engaged in discussions regarding the implementation of social cohesion mechanisms and how these mechanisms are being considered to safeguard and strengthen our democracy? And the second question from Marvin, in light of recent developments regarding Brigadier Christian Prinsloo, a former police officer who was granted parole after being convicted of selling guns to Cape Town gangs that are now active in colored communities, can you please share if the Cabinet has had discussions on this matter? And furthermore, do you believe that such decisions could potentially influence citizens' perception that the justice system may not be effectively serving their interest? And Thando Mayeko from Business Day, could the Minister kindly expand on the directive by the Cabinet to the economic cluster to put in place a plan of action on rising food prices, and could the cluster be considering relief measures to cushion consumers and businesses from high food prices? And we have Christian Duplessis from Network 24 with two questions. One, What does the national government want the Western Cape government or legislature to do with regards to the Western Cape Provincial Powers Bill? And the second one, why exactly did Cabinet mandate the Minister of Justice and of Culture to enter discussions with the Western Cape Provincial government, and why does the national government do not agree with the bill? And the last question for now, DG, from Kayakoko from News 24. Did the Cabinet fully engage with the observer mission reports on the Zimbabwean elections before congratulating the democratic polls? And what is the position on the findings, and why are those findings not in the statement? And if the Cabinet did not engage with the reports, why not? Thank you.
Thank you, Tagalani. Minister, we can hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. On the Johannesburg CBD fire, the government has a disaster management center, or nationally, with provincial disaster management centers, with also local disaster management centers in our municipalities. And we've got first responders who are in firefighters, the medical rescue teams who are on the ground doing their work with the city of Johannesburg and also with the provincial government. If they need reinforcement from the national disaster management centers, such assistance is offered. And on our part as government, the president continues to be updated of the situation, but as for now, is this still within the realm of the local government and also the provincial government of Gauteng. We continue to work as an integrated government to make sure that we respond to such incidences without attempting to preempt what would have been the cause of the fire. Will allow the investigations from both the relevant authorities to take place and then issue us with a report, and will take the actions thereafter. In terms of the question around the increasing incidence of racism, I've responded to this issue last time that we continue to work as government with civil society to deal and respond to the scourge of racism and the arrogance of racists to come back into this country. And say 30 years in our democracy, it is unfortunate that those who wish to divide this country based on racial lines. The children who were born in 1994 did not know the impact of racism, and you do not want to scar this generation with the impact of racism. Everywhere in the world where racism is tolerated, it has divided nations, it has destroyed society. But it's not the sole responsibility of government to deal with racism. We call on the social partners, the church, community leaders, and everyone to work together to make sure that we remain within the ideals of the founding fathers of this country, of pursuing the goal of a united, non-racial, and non-sexist South Africa. We also call on the law enforcement agencies, and our courts must continue to work to make sure that the racists are brought to book and that relevant sentences are meted out. And within our society, we should not harbor racists. We should isolate them. It's the best way to make sure South Africa becomes prosperous. On the matter of former Brigadier Christian Priestlaw, who was granted parole. Cabinet did not discuss such a matter. It's an operational matter that if it's worth discussing, it will be considered between the paroling officers of the correctional services and the police. And the parole decisions are not decisions of government, they are decisions of the parole board. And there's a rule that applies. And in South Africa, we believe in corrective and rehabilitative system. That's why we call it a correctional system. It's a correctional system. People are granted parole and they continue to be observed. If they violate the conditions of their parole, they get taken back in. And this does not negate the fact that we have seen parolees being repeat offenders on some of the crimes, and that's why we continue to watch them and tighten the system of the parole in the country. On the question of whether Cabinet is considering Marikana holiday, Cabinet is not considering a Marikana holiday. The Minister of Justice gave an update in terms of the work to compensate the victims of the Marikana massacre, including the progress report on the compensation of those 14 who were killed before the others were killed by the police. And we are not considering an additional holiday in the country because we believe that we cannot have more holidays. We need to have our economy to be rebuilt, but there are no discussion of a new holiday. On the question around the observer missions in Zimbabwe, between congratulating, the Electoral Commission of Zimbabwe announced the results in Zimbabwe. And when they've announced the results in Zimbabwe, we then congratulate the people of Zimbabwe for voting. South Africa sent its own mission to Zimbabwe. They're still collating the reports. They'll provide the reports later. So the reports that are issued by anyone else, they're still preliminary. They still have to be adopted and considered, and those matters are dealt with then. But now we are dealing with the results that have been announced by a legitimate body in Zimbabwe, which is the Electoral Commission of Zimbabwe. If there are disputes in the elections of Zimbabwe, there are processes within Zimbabwe and mechanisms within Zimbabwe to deal with those disputes and processes. And we await what Zimbabwe, the systems in Zimbabwe then do. Zimbabwe remains a sovereign state. We need to acknowledge their processes. If there are issues to be raised from the observer missions that we've sent, also from the SADC observer mission that we are, because we are members of SADC ourselves in South Africa, we'll engage with those reports when they're submitted at the right forum and we'll express our view then. On the directive to the economic cluster to put a plan in place on the rising food prices, whether the cluster is going to consider relief measures to cushion consumers and businesses from high food. That's why the tasking was yesterday. The cluster must then work and consider all the options in terms of the reports that have been issued by the Competition Commission, and then make proposals to Cabinet. When those proposals are made, we'll come and announce them. I cannot preempt what the cluster work will entail. I cannot preempt the measures that are in place. And this work, it must be noted, is in the back of the inflation that is coming down. We want to see the response of the industry and in particular the food sector in terms of pushing down the prices. We've already been alerted by the Competition Commission on the scenario where prices go high quickly, but they decline slowly when the production pressures go down. So we want to see whether there will be an improvement on that, and also that the Competition Commission is embarking on several market inquiries to deal with that. But I cannot predict and preempt what the economic cluster will then propose as intervention measures to cushion the people of South Africa, in particular the poor, who continue not to afford the basic food that is there, which is a play of multiple factors, including the conflict in Russia and Ukraine. In terms of what does the national government want from the Western government or do with the Western, in terms of the Western Cape, is the Western Cape Provincial Powers Bill. The issue is that in terms of the Constitution of the Republic, there are processes to create, for provinces to make their own bills. And there are functions that are provincial in terms of the Constitution. There are functions that are concurrent. There are functions that are that or the responsibility of national government. Where there is a move, as is being attempted in the Western Cape, to usurp national government powers, we have the responsibility to guide the province of Western Cape to say we are not in a federal republic, we are in a unitary republic, there's only one constitution. And we do that by engaging with them and discussing with them to say this is how the government system works as provided for in the Constitution. Schedules 4 and 5 of the Constitutions, they articulate the powers and functions of provinces and national government respectively, and the concurrent functions. So we want to make sure that, we have always indicated that we have a responsibility to remind the Western Cape government that there is no room for secession from the Republic of South Africa. We are going to remain one country. And that their responsibility is to make sure that the people of Western Cape are serviced irrespective of their race and their status, economic status. And not the current trends where the poor and blacks are excluded from services. Recently, the Minister of Human Settlements had to declare a dispute and took the city of Cape Town to the NCOP for refusing to do its part, and when they are given money, they return back the money because they do not want to service the poor and blacks in particular. Similarly, a few weeks ago, I think it's 3 weeks ago, the Minister of Transport had to intervene when again the city of Cape Town were making sure that the taxi industry is inhalated in Cape Town, and making sure that making up rules that go in contradiction with the national legislation. We have that responsibility to guide them. I've continued from this podium indicated that will continue to guide the Western Cape government and until it gets through to them that South Africa will remain one. There won't be two South Africa. And there's the question around the cost of the BRICS summit. I don't think we want to go into that exercise. We are talking about the impact and the benefits from the BRICS summit. And I've indicated that in due course the President will announce, will address the nation in terms of the benefits of the BRICS summit, what it has for South Africa. And I do not want to be counting the cents when we can be counting the billions. And we should not, as South Africans, get into the mode of wanting to discredit what we have done, what we have achieved, that is celebrated globally, and the benefits that are starting to come through immediately from this summit to this country. And the President will address the nation on those things. I think I've answered all the questions that have been done in terms of my notes, if I've excluded others. And I would just want to quickly correct the numbers in terms of what is being recovered in terms of the state, the Commission on the State Capture. The NPA has recovered 10.2 billion in the current MTF period, and 2.5 billion rands of it is the state capture related. They've already recovered the 2.5 billion in terms of the state capture related crimes. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We will now take the last round of questions. Do we still have any in the room? Okay. Tagalani?
Thanks, DG. We have one last question from Anastasia from Jacaranda FM News, and the question is on the Johannesburg fire. It's related to that. The question is on the families and friends who died as a result of the fire. The local authorities have confirmed that the building is a hijacked building. Is there perhaps a national strategy to deal with this problem? And is this considered as a housing problem? And what is the way forward from national government? Thanks.
Thank you, Tagalani. Minister, thank you.
Thank you. I think we had responded to that question. The fact that it's a hijacked building does not change much. There are lives that have been lost. There will be a report that is provided to us. Now is still early hours in terms of the responses. But we are aware that in hijacked buildings, there will not be a supply of electricity and water, and there will be all sorts of things. But we cannot want to speculate on the causes of that fire. And whether it's an indication of a housing problem, it is not. Because majority of those people who stay and reside in hijacked buildings are not South African, and they are not in this country legally. And the government cannot provide housing to illegal immigrants. The Minister of Human Settlements continue to work with the cities and the municipalities and the provincial governments to provide housing for all South Africans. And whether there's a national strategy to deal with hijacked buildings, the buildings in cities are the responsibilities of the metropolitan governments or the local municipalities and the provinces that they reside in. And what we can do as national government is to support through the Department of Human Settlements and the Department of COGTA, and in this case the Department of Home Affairs, who will deal with illegal immigration in the country, and the police, to support the efforts of the city to deal with hijacked buildings that have been also the dens of crime in our country. And the police, I'm sure you'll recall, I think 2 weeks ago, when the Minister of Police indicated when they were running Operation Chanela in the CBD, that when they went to the CBD, all of a sudden the CBD went empty. Because the police were there was nobody, because majority of our CBD people are illegal in the country, and therefore they cannot be there in the presence of the police. They run away. So it's those operations that must be done to support them, but the responsibility of hijacked buildings remain the responsibilities of the city. Thank you. And I'd like to close this session, because the President is going to start the program in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.